Welcome to Less Than 15, a show for busy business owners brought to you by DFK Australia, New Zealand. Each week we deliver bite-sized, actionable insights from industry experts so you're across the issues that really matter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus. Let's dive into this week's topic. Welcome back to another episode of Less Than 15, where you can stay on top of the issues that are most important to your business. I'm excited today because we have Liz Fleming with us to open the door to the hidden economy of grants that could be available to you right now. So thank you so much for joining us, Liz. You're most welcome. Well, I guess one of the things that I would love to leap into straight away is understanding some of the myths around grants, some of the things that might prevent a business owner from recognizing this as an option for them. So could you do some myth busting for us, please?
I can, and I think the biggest thing with grants is that they are always in the too hard basket and that they're just too hard to apply for. I have a lot of clients that come to me and, business owners are busy, time poor, resource poor, funds are limited. And I think it's about making that conscious decision that you're going to be searching for grants, applying for grants, and then getting the expertise and the help that you need to make the application. They can be hard and, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So we do have to make the application. We do have to make sure we meet the submission date, but there's help and support out there for you to be able to make that happen.
Okay, so we can bust the myth that it's in the too hard basket because there is a definitive payoff if you find the right grant, apply for it well, and voila, there could be some great things that happen. So we'll let go of that one.
Absolutely.
One of the myths that I had heard is that grants are really only available for charities and non-profits. So I think that's another myth that perhaps we can bust here today.
Absolutely, and it's probably one that I had when previous to working in that government role that you were speaking of before. That is the main way that charities and not-for-profits do get their funds. But there's also a whole raft of government grants at the local, state and federal levels for purpose and for profit businesses. And that includes private businesses as well. So there is obviously eligibility criteria, but if you are a business, you can apply for certain grants and it's worth looking for.
Fantastic. Well, that is good news because that's definitely a myth that I think is quite pervasive potentially out there in the marketplace. So there's two myths we've busted. Can you share a third? What's something else that people bump up against?
Well, I think people think that there's a grant for everything. And if just because they want a grant or need a grant or think they need a grant, there will be a grant. And that's just simply not true. So there's not grants for everything. There are 2,000 grants available at any one time in Australia across the whole spectrum. But in terms of grants for operations, marketing, and those sort of basic business costs, the government is not going to subsidise that for your business. You can't make a profit and have those as your operational costs, then you probably need to be looking for something else. So grants are really about growth, expansion, having impact and doing something better and different and allowing you to take that little bit of a risk that you might not have taken otherwise. And it's helping the government achieve their outcomes and objectives for their priorities that they're trying to serve for their community.
And that makes sense. Like, what are the government priorities? They're most likely going to bring grants around those core objectives to reach them. So on that
Absolutely.
point that there isn't a grant for everything, but there is over 2,000 out there, I think a key discussion point that you and I have explored in the past is how important it is to have a strategic growth plan. This isn't just about finding a grant that plugs a hole. This is about understanding the role that the potential grant could play in the strategic growth of your business, which the government is very interested in having. Can you talk to us about why it is so essential to have that type of plan and the interface between the plan and applying for the grant work?
Absolutely. And the first reason for having that plan, or at least have thought about your strategy and your growth and your expansion, is that most grants are only open for 4 to 6 weeks. So from the announced to the time that they close, and you're trying to run your business, do everything else, it's already in the too hard basket. So if you've got to pick it up from scratch, it just goes in the too hard basket before you even get it out. So having thought about and planned out your business plan, your strategy, knowing what projects, is it equipment? Is it more staff? Is it different programs? How are you going to do that? Who are you going to involve? Partners, suppliers? Is it locally? Is it online? Having an understanding at least of that, and even better if you've gone and got the quotes already so you have a ballpark figure of how much that project is going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, when you're then looking for the grants and you think your project's going to cost $50,000, there's no point finding a grant for $5,000 because it's not going to allow you to do what you want to do. So we need to be matching our searching criteria for what we actually want to do in our business. And again, linking it back strategically to the government's objectives and outcomes that they're trying to achieve to align those projects in the first place. And then it makes it much, much easier and efficient to write the grant application in that short amount of time from it being open to closed.
And the concept of the impact of receiving the grant and the impact that it's going to have. I believe it's not so much a case of just looking at the impact on my business, but it's the impact on, as you were just touching on, suppliers, the community, other pieces. Can you speak to that for a moment to help us lift our vision a little bit when it comes to that grant application?
Absolutely. And sure, there might be grants out there that allows you to have a strategic plan or a website written for your business. But more often than not, they're actually going to either increase your productivity, increase your workforce, increase just your activity in your business. That's going to have a flow-on effect to other businesses or other community members. You're going to be bringing something in that doesn't currently exist. And so the government is always looking for who's going to be impacted, how many people, for how long, what are those benefits? Because at the end of the day, they want those good news stories to say, hey, we helped fund this project. Look at what we've done. Put a pretty picture in the newspaper, and then they move on to the next thing. So, it's about showcasing that project of yours and also thinking this project has to be bigger than me and my organisation. And that goes for if you're a for-profit business or a not-for-profit or a community group or a sporting club. When you start thinking about it, there's a whole lot more benefit than just your own organisation.
So it's stretching your thinking there. And given that most of our listeners who are tuning in at the moment are in a for-profit business, that will be quite a majority of us, could you give us an idea of the categories that grants are available in? So these broad brushstrokes, obviously I'm not expecting you to list 2,000 of them, but there's broad category concepts that they fall into. Because I think that the link that needs to happen here in our minds is if we're thinking we need to demonstrate impact beyond our own benefit, if we could think of those categories and perhaps just give one or two examples in where we could see the impact could help the business, but also the broader community. I know you've secured a lot of grants for people, so you've probably got many examples up your sleeve.
Absolutely. So I think some of the main themes are really innovation and technology, creating efficiencies in your business. How can you do things smarter, better, faster? Sustainability and environment is a big thing at the moment for the government, especially the clean energy and the flow-on effects of that. There's also just expansion and growth. I've just had some grants approved for energy efficiency. That's allowed some small businesses to get new aircon systems, so their power bills for the future are going to be way less. Things like that. And so sometimes they're tangible items and equipment. And my best example of this is my kitchen cabinetry business, who were just not able to keep up with demand. A regional business, they struggled to get cabinet makers where they lived. And they applied for a grant for a CNC router that over $100,000 grant. They topped it up with a business loan to buy the whole machine. That meant that they could triple their production, cut their waiting lines, and just triple-fold their revenue with the same amount of staff. So, there are some grants out there that want you to hire more staff, but this was actually about their customers were missing out. They were having to wait, go other places. So they're the types of benefits that can be demonstrated by the grants, indirect and directly as well, because then the flow on of the materials, the installation, house building, all of those things come under that type of grant being presented and approved.
Yeah, and you can see how that would connect to other types of businesses that are serving that same audience. That's a great example. Okay, so there's some really good categories there, which will be in the show notes if you want to go back and check those. So let's just talk very quickly about some practical tips. Okay, I like the sound of this. I want to go and start to find out, are there grants available? Because one of those areas made me go, ding, what do I do? What's my first couple of steps to make this really actionable?
So the two things that I would say if you're really starting out is creating your wish list. So what is it that if someone gave you $10,000, $20,000 in your business, what would you go and buy? Because at the end of the day, and yes, I'm a chartered accountant, so I'm all about the money, but normally it's money. So we're going to go and buy something. What would you buy? That's the first question. And then again, think strategically. What do you really need in your business? And then work out where you're going to go and search for these grants. So I always encourage people to start with their local council, the area that you are located in. Then there's also government grants at state level, so knowing what state you live in. And then obviously there's federal grants. So being connected with each of those levels, signing up for their newsletter so you're first in the know. And then, of course, there's some grant directories that you can be searching on. Some of them are paid. Some of them you can have a 2-week trial on. And I encourage you to just go and do that because you might be sitting there going, there's no grants for me. And it's a bit of a long game. You can't just look once and forget about it. But sign up for that 2 weeks on something like the Grants Hub. That directory is amazing. That's the one I use. And then just see the range of grants that are out there. Spend 10 minutes every couple of days having a look, and then you can make the decision for yourself whether this is something you invest in with your own time or outsourcing, or just it's something you want to look at every couple of weeks so that you don't miss out on those grant opportunities.
And that would actually probably help you think a little laterally as well, because at the moment, the grant space, if you haven't explored it, could seem a little bit fuzzy. But once you're in there and seeing examples of the type of things, if you use the filters that are there to narrow down to particular categories and areas, then suddenly your brain will start popping a bit as to what might be available to you.
Absolutely. And you can search by keywords. So if you have got something on your wish list, just pop that into the search bar and see what comes up. And yes, there will be grants that aren't in your area or a wrong state, but at least you get the encouragement of going, well, I'm on track, because if I was somewhere else, that's the type of thing the government are looking forward to funding.
That's perfect. So that really, as you're saying, opens the door to a hidden economy that perhaps we'd not considered before.
Absolutely.
Now, you've been kind enough to provide us with a grant application checklist and the links through to the Grants Hub, but also some other spots where you can actually do the searching for these potential grants. So those are in the show notes, so make sure you go and download that because it's a great shortcut. Is there any other point that you would like to leave people with at this moment, Liz, that encourages us to give it a go? Is there any little nugget of wisdom that we may have missed with the questions I've asked you?
Oh, I don't think we missed it, but I think my biggest thing is thinking about if there was a grant for $10,000, what would you spend that on your business? And not marketing, like it's got to be something tangible, something for growth. But that will get your brain thinking, oh, what about this? What's something you've always wanted that you know is going to have a huge impact either on your business, your community, your customers you serve? And, you know, if you're in business, you're probably also on a community group or a committee. Also think about grants for them as well. But yeah, start with your wish list. And then I promise you, if you start searching for grants, you'll probably find one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. If you're wanting to find out more about Liz's work in the world, grantsclub.com.au, is that correct?
That's right, yes.
Excellent. Now, and just as a passing thought to you, this is something that could work so well with your accountant and business advisor to actually look at that strategic plan, work out where are the holes, where are the opportunities, and then begin that search with the resources provided today, or perhaps with an external expert like Liz who could help you track down those hidden economy opportunities that could help you strategically grow your business. So thank you for spending your time listening to this episode today. We'll be back again next week with another Less Than 15 podcast. Take care. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Less Than 15 and have a fresh idea or two to take action on. Hit the subscribe button so you catch every bite-sized business bulletin. And we'd love you to leave a review or perhaps share the episode with a friend. Less Than 15 is brought to you by Accountants and Business Advisors DFK Australia New Zealand, helping business owners make better decisions through local knowledge, national connections, and global reach. We'll be back next week with more valuable insights to help you and your business grow.